What's going on, Sooner Nation? Let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit of recruiting today because the Oklahoma Sooners got a great prediction for a 4-star wide receiver. And remember, we talked about needs for the 26 class, rebuilding the wide receiver room after all the losses that you had in this previous transfer portal cycle, and knowing Oklahoma might lose a couple guys in this upcoming portal cycle as well. You needed to have a good showing. And so Oklahoma looks to kick it off and continue success off the Daniel Odum commitment. Now, to start this off, I think there's a lot of people who still speculate on whether or not Daniel Odum is going to stay committed in this class. And we're going to talk about that towards the end. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Join the discussion. Give me your guys' thoughts. What, let's say, 4 wide receivers do you think will ultimately end up being a part of Oklahoma's class? Or do you think they're only going to take 2 to 3 guys and then maybe go hit the portal for a couple of guys? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But the Oklahoma Sooners today, listen, they have gotten some predictions from a couple of big-time recruiting analysts in favor of them to go out there and land Aldor Miles. Now, we've talked about Aldor Miles quite a bit here on the podcast, but Aldor Miles is a 4-star wide receiver out of Kaufman, Texas, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's got the size, not the most speedy guy that you're going to see from a wide receiver standpoint, but a guy who's got a really good frame and a guy that ultimately you get him in Emmett Jones' room. Listen, he's going to get the most of him. He's going to make the best of him. Like, this is the kind of guy that Emmett Jones works best with. Now, got the prediction from Mike Roach, who's a national analyst, I think, with 247. And then you have Josh McQuistion over at On3 Sooner Scoop putting in his prediction as well for Oklahoma to land Aldor Miles. Now, what do I think here? Because I've had a chance to kind of talk to Aldor Miles about his recruitment, continue to follow up. And, you know, back in January when I talked to him, we were kind of talking about a top 3. And he said Oklahoma was definitely in there. He said he was going to be committing sometime after all of his official visits this summer. And let me tell you, this man's got quite a few official visits currently scheduled. I think he will be kicking it off with Oklahoma State this weekend. Then he'll be going to Stanford on April 25th. He'll be going to SMU on May 2nd, Kansas on May 31st, Texas Tech on June 6th, USC on June 13th, and then Oklahoma for the Champion Barbecue. And it looks like Oklahoma at this point will get the last crack at Aldor Miles. And obviously, for those of you who aren't aware, players can take more than 5 official visits. That was done last year. I think you saw a couple guys do it, but I think you're going to start to see it become more and more of a common occurrence. So anyway, so we were talking about his, recruitment. And listen, he straight up told me, OU's looking pretty good, and that was back in January. So we had a chance to follow back up with him again more recently after a recent visit that he took to campus. I believe it was the March 8th weekend. He was talking about how he was going to get back down to TCU on March 29th and then go to Texas Tech and maybe some spring practices. But he said Oklahoma, Texas Tech, SMU, USC, those are all the schools that he's really interested in right now. But obviously that list continues to grow. And as you've seen with his official visitors or official visit lists. And so I kind of asked him, like, what sticks out between Oklahoma and some of the other top contenders in your recruitment? And he realistically said, I'd say the game atmosphere and just the support and passion the fans have for the team. So he confirmed that up with, hey, I'm going to be on campus for June 20th for the Champion Barbecue. So Oklahoma fans should feel good about where you sit with Aldor Miles. And this would be a very good grab for the Sooners. Now, additionally, if you pair that up with a Mason James, who also recently just got a prediction put in favor of Oklahoma, this would be a pretty solid wide receiver grab with what you currently have. And that's assuming Daniel Odum is no longer a part of the class, which I know I told you I'll tell you about that. We're going to get to that here in a second. But Mason James, in an interview with Chad Simmons, of course, talked about how, hey, I would like to get this narrowed down sooner rather than later. Now, is there any pun intended with the sooner rather than later? I guess we're going to find out. But I think a lot of people around Mason James and that camp are expecting maybe a commitment to drop maybe before summer for Mason James. So if you're an Oklahoma fan, I think you sit in a prime position for one of the top prospects in your state and a prospect at a position of need. So Emmett Jones has done a very good job at fostering the relationship with Mason James. You might be saying, well, of course he has. He's in state. Joe John Finley has not done a good job of fostering tight end relationships in the state. So it's not always a given that a coach is going to foster relationships well. Sorry, I need to get off the Joe John Finley hate. We're not talking about Joe John Finley today, but he should be fired. I don't know why he's still a coach on the team. All right, on to the next. Anyways, Mason James, prediction in favor of Josh McCuistion. I think you could see that one in favor of Oklahoma as well. Good news coming. Good news incoming there. Now, kind of taking a look at Daniel Odum. What's currently here for the class at Oklahoma? And Daniel Odum, a lot of people connect him with Jaden O'Neal. So again, I think Daniel Odum's commitment lies with what happens with Jaden O'Neal. If you ask me today, does Jaden O'Neal's commitment stick in this class? I think you're 30 or 40% chance of him sticking at the current moment. And the reason is Ben Arbuckle has shown that he is wanting to recruit a different quarterback. And the reasoning for taking two quarterbacks, elite level quarterbacks, just does not fit in today's age. If it was backup quarterback, different story. So with that being said, Jaden O'Neal's on the road. He's at FSU this week, going to Auburn this weekend, be coming back home. I would imagine if Jaden O'Neal flips from Oklahoma, Daniel Odum would probably be gone not too long after that, or maybe even a little bit before, because they're friends. They talk, right? There is a connection there. And I really feel like the only reason why Oklahoma got Daniel Odum was because of that relationship with Jaden O'Neal. So if you want Daniel Odum, you got to foster the quarterback relationship well, and that's not something Oklahoma's done. Just going to be blunt and honest. Now, does that mean it's over? I think Oklahoma still has a good shot to land a couple other wide receivers if Daniel Odum decides to actually flip. And one of the guys that I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're paying attention to, and one that you definitely want Oklahoma to go out there and land, is a guy like Jaden Pettit, a 6'4", 195-pound wide receiver out of Naples, Florida, out of First Baptist Academy, the number 210th ranked player in the entire country. He has over 31 total offers. 31. From the likes of like a Florida, a Miami, a North Carolina, a Tennessee, a Florida State, and Auburn. You know, you look at some of the most elite teams in the country on offense, they're going out there trying to recruit his services. And Jaden Pettit, I think, could probably earn a couple more offers if there are some schools that maybe end up striking out on some other guys that they're going after. Also, I really like Brock Boyd, the 6'1" wide receiver out of Southlake Carroll, currently committed to TCU, but this is a relationship that, this is a area where Emmett Jones, I think, has deep relationships, and I think it's one where if Emmett Jones kind of came around knocking, Oklahoma maybe closer to signing day could try to flip Brock Boyd. Jabari Brady, yeah, he's on the table, but I think he's on the table as long as you foster your relationship with Jaden O'Neal well. Right. Again, another guy that's played with Jaden O'Neal on the 7-on-7 teams at camps, a guy that Jaden O'Neal has a great relationship with. If Jaden O'Neal's in this class, I think you have a good shot at him. If he's not, Oklahoma probably moves on, and you could probably maybe try to circle back around with like a Zion Robinson out of Mansfield, Texas, who is 6'4", 180 pounds. Again, a guy that I think Oklahoma needs because of his size and athletic ability. Or you could go out to the West Coast in California and go back to modern day and look at a Caden Dixon Wyatt, who is 6'2", 180 pounds. Maybe Ben Arbuckle has some roots there, but Oklahoma might have shot themselves in the foot with how they treated the wide receivers last cycle and how they kind of pushed some of those guys out. But that's kind of what's going on in the recruiting world for the wide receiver. Oklahoma got some good news. We'll see if any good news comes down with potential commitments over the next couple of weeks. Guys, if you guys have made it this far and you have not already, make sure you guys hit that like and you hit that subscribe button, or jump down in the comments below and let me know what you guys think. Let me know the 4 wide receivers that you think Oklahoma lands.